Hello everybody, I thought we'd try something a little different today, and we do a nice discussion of what we might see next in the Alien franchises, but I wanted to start off with this interesting little piece of swag that I was given from the very popular Alien Colonial Marine game. And also, here's an interesting little thing since we're getting near Comic-Con time. This is an Alien Covenant pin set from the activation stuff. I was going to try to find my Sebastopol station patch, but decided nope, it's too early on a Sunday morning to go digging around through my room to bring that out. So decided to go video this morning rather than do it audio and rather than type something up, because honestly I've been writing a lot of stuff lately with Comic-Con and game reviews, and I am just tired of it. So what I think we'll do now, I have a bit of a window before the Ubisoft live forward presentation starts. I thought we'd have a look at things, and the reason this got me thinking was the recent arrival of the artwork for Alien and Predator as it switches over to the Marvel comic universe. As you know, the Alien one, if you look closely, there's a little old-style Walkman in it, which has got some people thinking Guardians of the Galaxy. The Predator is clearly standing on Avenger Academy, holding an Iron Man drone skull in its head. So, of course, the thought is that when Marvel takes over the property from Dark Horse in December, they will, of course, do some crossovers, stuff like that, maybe like a sorbet to cleanse the palate before moving forward with their own stories. This, of course, got me thinking, why do it now versus later? If you're not going to be making your stuff come out until the new year, why make the announcement now, especially since Dark Horse still has a few things to come out? So it had me wondering. We've heard rumors of a live action series possibly for Hulu. We've heard that the Alien shooter game is still in the mix, but we've had nothing on that other than Cold Iron still saying it's coming. There's a novel or so that is still out there, but what is happening with the franchise? Now, obviously this whole COVID situation has made it very difficult. There's nothing Alien related scheduled for Comic-Con at home. Went through the complete schedule. Sunday schedule came out today. Absolutely nothing listed for that. What we did have heard repeatedly is talk of a soft reboot or a full-on reboot for the show. I know that there has been talk that the producers had at Brandywine had pitched a script for a fifth Alien film, and so we're not going to necessarily talk about they need to do this, they don't need to do that in terms of storyline. I'm going to look at it more from a thematic standpoint. So the first thing I think they definitely need to do is give us interesting characters who do not do stupid things. I recently watched Prometheus again a couple of days ago, and I keep coming back to good old Fifield and Milbourne going, yeah, these are two of the dumbest individuals I've ever seen portrayed in their fields. Now by that, here you have Milbourne who sees a snake and a creature coming at him with the hammer Pete. Now anybody will tell you, generally speaking, creatures have an aversion to snakes. They recoil. Serpents, that sort of thing. Go biblical if you want. So here he is on a completely new planet facing a completely new species. Here's a snake, pops up, Hammer Pete, clearly agitated, making gestures at him, and he keeps trying to touch the thing. Now, I could get if he took out a specimen case and tried to grab it and put it in a specimen case to study, but to sit there and try to talk to it and touch it absolutely made no sense, and we all know what happened. Then you have Fifield, the geologist, who basically clearly had never had a psychological profile done on him because it was pretty abundant he was not suited for deep space missions. But, give that some slack. They were in over their heads, so there you have it. The other one, though, it's Covenant is what gets to me. We've had lots of people talk repeatedly about the going out into the atmosphere without pressure suits or helmets. To me, it was just the stupidity all around. Like the egg right there. Go ahead, have a look. It's safe. So he's staring right over the top of it. His lab alone, David's lab alone, would have been enough to chase off any rational person. And the fact that none of them could figure out there wasn't something quite right about him. Oh yeah, here's this leathery object in a creepy looking lab. It looks like it would be right with Dr. Frankenstein, Dr. Jekyll, Dr. Moreau. I'm going to go stick my head over the top of the thing. Common sense, basic biology, there's usually something alive inside an egg. I don't think he was lining them up there to make omelets, so go figure. The other thing I think it's really important is a return to the mystery. What made the first film so appealing was the fact that we didn't know what was coming. We did not know much about the creature. We did not know what it was capable of. We did not know what its motivations are, where it came from, and what it was going to do next. All we knew was that it was hostile. They couldn't figure out what it was and how to combat it, and it was picking them off one by one. Obviously, with subsequent films, there is going to be less and less of the mystery because, as Ridley Scott himself said, he thought the xenomorph was played out after seeing it on as used as a prop in a ride. Well, we went back to it in Covenant. And I think what we have gone to now is more of a where did they come from rather than what they are. So if you're going to do this again, you need to have a little more mystery about the creature. And I think this is going to be the hard part. You have to have perhaps a new wrinkle to them. We've seen what they're like in action. We've seen them be cunning, hide, figure out things, cut the power to the guns in the command center. In Aliens, that sort of thing. We've seen them in Alien Resurrection figure out how to get out of traps, how to even set traps, that sort of thing. So I think a little more about that. What exactly are they capable of doing? How independent and cunning can they be? Would be a very interesting thing. And perhaps learn more things about them. Everybody has kind of adopted the fact that it's a hive structure that is run by the queen, but perhaps learn a little more about how do they act when there's not a queen present? How do they act? What happens when the queen is killed? And how do they go about replacing the queen? That sort of thing. This whole hibernation thing is what gets me. The original plan was that the creature perhaps had a short lifespan like a fly, hence why it was so aggressive, because it had an overwhelming imperative to reproduce and to defend. And so I went back to Aliens, where they were all just sitting there sleeping in that hive, and I'd be curious to learn more about things like that. How long can they sleep? What do they do for food? What is their natural lifespan if they're not killed? That sort of thing. And, people say, well, the eggs on LV-426 in the original film, they'd been in there forever. Yeah, but there's a stasis field, so we don't know how that affected things. Little things like that. I think that would be a good way to start. The suspense. I think one of the things that has gone away is the suspense. In the first film, again, I know it is unfair for subsequent films to come back to this because it is considered such a masterpiece. It was dark. You had that haunted house feel. What is around the corner? What is lurking above? Where is it, and what is it going to do next? Aliens, fantastic film, took a different approach and went for a more straight-up action film, but there were moments of suspense. When Ripley goes into the nest, that's suspenseful. When those face huggers get loose, that's suspenseful. When they go into the atmospheric processing station, we all know as fans the aliens are there, hence the title of the film. We don't know where they are and what's coming. That is an important element. We've kind of gone away with this with a wash of let's just throw as many aliens in well-lit situations right up on the screen at people, as we saw in the Alien vs. Predator films, as we saw in some of the others. And, it's a good thing, but I think the creature works better in a darker setting rather than a well-lit setting, because that is the whole basis, the monster in the dark. And so we will see what happens with that. Another one, and I think this is my final point on this, and it's very, very, to me, very important. Don't try to rewrite the mythos. The mythos has been somewhat established, but a lot of it hasn't. Let's go back to Covenant and Prometheus. We don't know how that ship landed on LV-426, and those eggs got stuck there with the beacon going off that attracted the company who rerouted the Nostromo. We all know the story. So when Prometheus was announced, many people said we don't need to know the backstory. It works best not knowing where these things came from, what they are. The fact that they're dangerous, that's good enough to keep the story going. Another group said, yeah, well, we need to know a little more about them. Why exactly was that ship there? Why did we have the company? How long did they know? What did they know? So on and so forth. So you walk a fine line here. I think it's important to look at the last two films, Prometheus and Covenant, which I know if he gets to do another film, this could change everything around. But there's a lot of people that aren't entirely thrilled with what they feel is spelling things out way too much. And this implication that David essentially designed the aliens, although I'd always thought that they'd find out that it was basically a mix between humans and the black goo after seeing Prometheus. You have the deleted scenes with Fifield that kind of indicate some of this. I think you have to look at a hybrid situation and say, okay, there are some things we would like to know, there's some things we do know, and there's some things we probably do not need to know. And the fact that when they went into the temple in Prometheus, they saw the mural, boom, up on the wall in a Christ-like crucifixion state of the, some call it the deacon, or let's say a type of alien. And so it does appear that at least the engineers were familiar with that situation. You come back again to the whole problem. But then here's David fiddling around with these things, and then people say, well, wait a second, that doesn't make sense because the ship on LV-426 had been there forever. Covenant's only 10 years before Alien, so on and so forth. So is it a case of that David took what was already around and played around with it and created his own substrain of aliens? Who knows? But this is where it gets to be dangerous. I think the ideal thing is to simply say, maybe we don't know where the aliens came from. Maybe they were indeed, and I think very likely, biological weapons designed by the engineers, or maybe they were biological weapons that the engineers either created, discovered, or were attacked with, and that they simply were looking to find a way to control them. Now, control them as in get them out of there and save their culture. All these are theories. I mean, you can go on forever. I personally like to think that they were perhaps created by the engineer. Well, not perhaps. I like to think that they were created by the engineers, or the engineers became aware of them, knew they were dangerous, put them on the ship. Now, whether it was to get them out of their space, to attack another group, or some hybrid in between, who knows? I've seen one theory that said the engineers were having a civil war, and somebody, essentially dropped the xenomorphs on them, and that is why we saw the lab in Prometheus destroyed. They were getting ready to go out and bomb Earth or other places with the black goo, so another sect dropped the eggs on them, so on and so forth. Lots of crazy theories. So you can find a way to work the backstory in without destroying things. I think one of the best things you can do is you can open up other possibilities, but do not do a single definitive answer. You can say this group knew about the eggs, this group worked on the eggs, this group had no clue about them, and try to find some way to hybridize them all together. Let's look at it this way. If they are indeed designed as weapons of mass destruction, it stands to reason that their entire society did not know about them. And it could lead credence to the Civil War idea that, hey, look at this group of engineers created these things and we need to stop them, or people conflicts arose. Because think about any culture. They cannot all be scientists. They cannot all be pilots. You had to have poets, construction, education, merchants, infrastructure. So the fact that to say that everybody who was an engineer was all in on seeding other worlds and creating these new weapons doesn't make sense. Does not make sense. You would have aspects of all walks of society. I'm going to change it up here and use the Klingon analogy. It's been very clear, while they do carry warrior blood and warrior instincts, not every Klingon is a warrior. They do have educators, they do have medics, they do have engineers, they do have educators, lawyers, so on and so forth. So there are different structures, even though the common perception of a Klingon is that they're all warriors. So bear that in mind. So what do you think we're going to see next? Do you think we're going to see a new movie? Do you think it's going to be books and comics for a while with perhaps a video game? Do you think we're going to see a live action TV series of some sort or an animated series? What do you think? I'd definitely love to hear your thoughts, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful Sunday. Stay safe, be well. Take care.